Good evening. I'm still uploading. It's 8 p.m. The Lidl supermarket sells bread and cakes half price after 9 a.m. I think I will, it's Saturday evening. I think so. I will record 45 minutes, then stop the video, then I will buy 3 cola and big cake. Let's do that, why not? But I don't think 45 minutes is not enough. But most time I'm very sleepy. So I not remember so much, but I like to read about it. I don't know what it is before I start reading. But this is super long. I think we cannot finish in 40 minutes. But I like to read something else tomorrow. I don't like to start my day reading this tomorrow, because tomorrow I cannot remember anything of this.
Argues that some 5,075 tg of material would burn in a total US-Soviet nuclear war, as analysis by Smolov blueprints and real buildings returned a maximum of 1,475 tg of material that could be burned, assuming that all the available combustible material was actually ignited. 147. Although Kearney was of the opinion that future more accurate models would indicate there will be even smaller reductions in temperature, including future potential models that did not so readily accept that firestorms would occur as dependably as nuclear winter modelers assume. In NWSS, Kearney did summarize a comparatively moderate cooling estimate of no more than a few days. 151. From the 1986 nuclear winter reappraised model by Starley Thompson and Stephen Schneider. 152. This was done in an effort to convey to his readers that, contrary to the popular opinion at the time, in the conclusion of these two climate scientists, on scientific grounds, the global apocalyptic conclusions of the initial nuclear winter hypothesis can now be relegated to a vanishing low level of probability. 151. However, a 1988 article by Brian Martin in Science and Public Policy, 149, states that although nuclear winter reappraised concluded the US-Soviet nuclear winter would be much less severe than originally thought, with the authors describing the effects more as a nuclear autumn. Other statements by Thompson and Schneider, 153, 154, show that they resisted the interpretation that this means a rejection of basic points made about nuclear winter. In the Alan Robock et al. 2007 paper, they write that because of the use of the term nuclear autumn by Thompson and Schneider, 1986, even though the authors made clear that the climatic consequences would be large, in policy circles the theory of nuclear winter is considered by some to have been exaggerated and disproved. For example, Martin, 1988. 19. In 2007, Schneider expressed his tentative support for the cooling results of the limited nuclear war. Pakistan and India, analyzed in the 2006 model, saying, The sun is much stronger in the tropics than it is in mid-latitudes. Therefore, a much more limited warp there could have a much larger effect, because you are putting the smoke in the worst possible place, and anything that you can do to discourage people from thinking that there is any way to win anything with a nuclear exchange is a good idea. 155. The contribution of smoke from the ignition of live non-desert vegetation, living forests, grasses and so on nearby to many missile silos is a source of smoke originally assumed to be very large in the initial Twilight at Noon paper, and also found in the Popular Tips publication. However, this assumption was examined by Bush and Small in 1987, and they found that the burning of live vegetation could only conceivably contribute very slightly to the estimated total non-urban smoke production. 12. With their vegetation's potential to sustain burning only probable if it is within a radius or two from the surface of their nuclear fireball, which is at a distance that would also experience extreme blast winds that would influence any such fires. 156. This reduction in the estimate of the non-urban smoke hazard is supported by the earlier preliminary estimating nuclear forest fires publication of 1984, 12, and by the 1956 in-field examination of surface scorched, mangled but never burnt down tropical forests on the surrounding islands from the shot points in the Operation Castle, 157, and Operation Redwing, 158, 159. Test Series. A paper by the United States Department of Homeland Security, finalized in 2010, states that after a nuclear detonation targeting a city, if fires are able to grow and coalesce, a firestorm could develop that would be beyond the abilities of firefighters to control. However, experts suggest in the nature of modern U.S. city design and construction may make a raging firestorm unlikely. 166. The nuclear bombing of Nagasaki, for example, did not produce a firestorm. 167. This was similarly noted as early as 1986-88, when the assumed quantity of fuel mass loading, the amount of fuel per square meter, in cities underpinning the winter models was found to be too high and intentionally creates heat fluxes that loft smoke into the lower stratosphere, yet assessments more characteristic of conditions to be found in real-world modern cities had found that the fuel loading, and hence the heat flux that would result from efficient burning, will rarely loft smoke much higher than 4 km. 12. During the Operation Meeting House firebombing of Tokyo on 9-10 March 1945, 1,665 tons, 1.66 kilotons, of incendiary and high explosive bombs in the form of bomblets were dropped on the city, causing the destruction of over 10,000 acres of buildings, 16 square miles, 41 square kilometers. The most destructive and deadliest bombing operation in history. 160, 161. Russell Sykes, associate of the Harvard University Center for International Affairs, argues that the winter model's assumptions give results which the researchers want to achieve and is a case of worst-case analysis run amok. 149. In September 1986, Sykes published Siberian Fire as Nuclear Winter Guide in the journal Nature, in which he investigated the 1915 Siberian Fire, which started in the early summer months and was caused by the worst drought in the region's recorded history. The fire ultimately devastated the region, burning the world's largest boreal forest, the Azores of Germany. While approximately 8°C of daytime summer cooling occurred under the smoke clouds during the weeks of burning, no increase in potentially devastating agricultural night frosts occurred. 168. Following his investigation into the Siberian Fire of 1915, Sites criticized the nuclear winter model results for being based on successive worst-case events. The improbability of a string of 40 such coin tosses coming up heads approaches that of a pat royal flush. Yet it was represented as a sophisticated one-dimensional model, a usage that is oxymoronic unless applied to the British model. Leslie Lawson, Twiggy. 148. Sites cited Carl Sagan, adding an emphasis, in almost any realistic case involving nuclear exchanges between the superpowers, global environmental changes sufficient to cause an extinction event equal to or more severe than that of the close of the Cretaceous, when the dinosaurs and many other species died out, are likely. Cites comments. The ominous rhetoric italicized in this passage puts even the 100 megaton, the original 100 city firestorm scenario, on a par with the 100 million megaton blast of an asteroid striking Earth. This is astronomical mega hype. 148. Cites concludes as the science progressed and more authentic sophistication was achieved in newer and more elegant models, the postulated effects headed downhill. By 1986, these worst-case effects had melted down from a year of Arctic darkness to warmer temperatures than the cool months in Palm Beach. A new paradigm of broken clouds and cool spots had emerged. The once global hard frost had retreated back to the northern tundra. Mr. Sagan's elaborate conjecture had fallen prey to Murphy's lesser-known second law: if everything must go wrong, don't bet on it. 148. Cites opposition caused the proponents of nuclear winter to issue responses in the media. The proponents believed it was simply necessary to show only the possibility of climatic catastrophe, often a worst-case scenario, while opponents insisted that to be taken seriously, nuclear winter should be shown as likely under reasonable scenarios. 169. One of these areas of contention, as elucidated by Lynn Arnsforth, I suppose the question of which season should be used as the backdrop for the USSR war models. Most models choose the summer in the northern hemisphere as the start point to produce the maximum suit lofting and therefore eventual winter effect. However, it has been pointed out that if the same number of firestorms occurred in the autumn or winter months, when there is much less intense sunlight to loft soot. The first nuclear bombing in history is the 16-kiloton nuclear bomb, approximately 10 times as much energy as delivered onto Tokyo, yet due in part to the comparative inefficiency of larger bombs. Note 1. 162. A much smaller area of building destruction occurred when contrasted with the results from Tokyo. Only 4.5 square miles, 12 square kilometers, of Hiroshima was destroyed by blast, fire, and firestorm effects. 163. Similarly, Major Cortez F. Enlow, a surgeon in the USAF who worked with the United States Strategic Bombing Survey, USPS, noted that the even more energetic 22-kiloton nuclear bomb dropped on Nagasaki did not result in a firestorm and thus did not do as much fire damage as the conventional airstrikes on Hamburg, which did generate a firestorm. 164. Thus whether a city will firestorm depends primarily not on the size or type of bomb dropped, but rather on the density of fuel present in the city. Moreover, it has been observed that firestorms are not likely in areas where modern buildings, constructed of bricks and concrete, have totally collapsed. By comparison, Hiroshima, and Japanese cities in general in 1945, had consisted of mostly densely packed wooden houses along with the common use of shudgy paper sliding walls. 163, 165. The fire hazard construction practices present in cities that have historically firestormed are now illegal in most countries for general safety reasons, and therefore cities with firestorm potential are far rarer into a stable region of the stratosphere. The magnitude of the cooling effect would be negligible, according to January model run by Covey et al. 170. Schneider conceded the issue in 1990, saying a war in late fall or winter would have no appreciable cooling effect. 147. Arnsforth also expressed frustration that although a managed forest fire in Canada on the 3rd of August, 1985 is said to have been lit by proponents of nuclear winter, with the fire potentially serving as an opportunity to do some basic measurements of the optical properties of the smoke and smoke-to-fuel ratio, which would have helped refine the estimates of these critical model inputs. The proponents did not indicate that any such measurements were made. 170. Peter V. Hobbs, who would later successfully attain funding to fly into and sample the smoke